All right, Forgers, the time has come to celebrate our 100th episode with an outstanding, amazing guest star. Please welcome to the show, animator for Heroes of the Storm, Blizzard Entertainment's Lana Bachynski. First off, Lana, thank you so much for helping us celebrate our 100th episode of HeroesForge.
Hey, no problem. And congratulations. 100 episodes is an incredible feat.
Thank you. It's been a journey, hasn't it, Kristen?
It's been 2 years, 2 years of work, but it's been great because it's been a wonderful way to kind of expound upon creating things rather than talking about news.
Yeah, absolutely. And if I do the math right, I mean, that means we've been doing an episode every week for 2 years, like Kristen said, and this is a really, really great way to celebrate that. So let's get into this. Let's get into this right away. First of all, we want to thank the Blizzard Heroes of the Storm community team for helping make this interview possible. We cannot thank you enough. This is an awesome thing to be able to do, and we're talking about something that is a little different than most interviews that people have with that have the opportunity to interview someone from the Heroes team, and that's animation. So Anna, can you give us a little bit of a background of your time at Blizzard, what your current role is with the company, and how it's all going?
Absolutely. I started at Blizzard in 2012 as an intern, actually, on the StarCraft 2 Heart of the Swarm team. And I was fortunate enough to also get a little glimpse into what would become Heroes of the Storm. So during my time back then, I was mostly responsible for all of the flailing animations in the game. It was a big deal to me. And a couple of the dances. And then at the end of my time, I got to go in and animate what still animations from my internship are still in the game, as the Wonder Billy, Malfurion's victory animation. There's another one that was like a big deal to me. Somebody's dance. Oh, Malfurion's dance. He does the safety dance. And those were like a huge honor for me as an intern to be working on this new thing coming out. And then I left. I finished my degree up in San Francisco, and after a little bit of doing some freelance illustration, I got a text one night that was like, hey, do you want to move back to Orange County? I said, absolutely. And I was been on the animation team for Heroes of the Storm ever since.
That's fantastic. So you're on the animation team, your job is going, and it's time to start animating a hero, a specific character. You're given the portfolio. Mm-hmm. How do you start? Where does the crafting process begin?
For every animator, it's a little bit different, but one of the best things about working on Heroes of the Storm is we're pulling these characters who typically have a huge history running through years and years. How long has Blizzard been around? You know, some of these characters, they have so many iterations where they're popping up through time. And so usually we go and we pull references from where they've showed up in other games, and we look at what their kits looked like there, certain things that would be iconic moments that players of our games would be like, yes, that was the moment where I was so excited that Gul'dan did X or whatever it was. And watching old videos, and sitting with the team as a whole who is going to be responsible for creating that hero. So oftentimes, you know, I could sit there and I could say, oh, these are all the things I want to animate, but maybe those things don't actually make it into the final design. So it's the designer's responsibility to make sure that all the various abilities are really hitting the fantasy of that hero, and then it's the animator's ability to take the kit and hit it home so you know exactly what's hitting and how hard.
Yeah, and it's incredible how it does. I mean, all these characters that we play in the game, we see some really incredible animation. So speaking a little bit more in a, I guess I would call it like a practical way of thinking about how these models look in the game, do you ever compare people, like normal real life people walking down the hallway? Like you might see somebody walking down the hallway and say, that guy, he looks like Garrosh might look. Like maybe we want to you know, draw him in a way that would help inspire us the way to move forward in designing a specific character. Do you ever use real life people to inspire what you're doing?
I would say absolutely, but certainly more for some characters than others. When it comes to the models themselves, Heroes of the Storm lives in a very unique space where having to bring in characters from all the various Blizzard games, we have to kind of find this happy middle ground so that somebody like Johanna doesn't feel out of place standing next to a Murloc. So where we have to tweak things visually in order to make sure that they live in the same world, and because our proportions are so exaggerated, drawing from real life by way of the way the model looks, obviously basic anatomy, sure, but usually it's the very, very skilled character modeling team that just makes sure that it lives in the right space. By way of motion, though, we absolutely draw from real life all the time, because there's only so far people can suspend their disbelief. So thinking about specific characters, really anybody can be the character. We take reference all the time. I myself have been Stukov and Gul'dan. I've been Cho and Gall. I've been Kerrigan. I've been, most recently, I've been Alex Straza. And just trying to figure out how that character's attitude would be. You get a little bit of acting in there, and you're working on your, method animating, and trying to pull these videos, and then the motion that you see in those videos, how the weight feels, where you're shifting on from one hip to the other. Those are the things we take rather than explicitly somebody's anatomy. However, there are times, I know we're just sort of rambling right now, there are times where we can't do something. I was lucky I got to animate the Monkey King Samuro, which I love doing, but he's supposed to be this nimble little guy who does like these cool tricks with this staff, and I can't do any of those things. But one of our tech artists, Billy Shee, is a fantastic, he does the wushu, or did wushu fighting, and so I actually went outside with him, and he brought a staff in, and he did all the video recording of him working with the staff for me to use as reference for his Hearth and his Victory and his Hero Select animations. So really incredible.
That's amazing. That's so cool. So I'm assuming you guys don't do motion capture then?
We do not, no. Everything that we do in the game is hand-keyed. So picture somebody having a puppet in their hands, and you want to say the puppet's going to punch. And so everything that you would do to physically move a puppet in real life to make it look like it was punching is exactly what we have to do in 3D.
Oh, that's great. So what are the pros and cons then of having that hand puppet animation versus motion capture?
I would say that the pros are definitely, like, I feel, I've never worked with motion capture personally, so I can't say that it's not true for people who work with motion capture, but I feel a distinct sense of ownership over the character. As soon as I open the file, all you see is whoever is standing straight-faced, their eyes half-lidded, and their arms straight up to their sides. And then I get to take that character and immediately, every pose I put it in is a pose that I created. Every motion that I put it through is a motion that I deliberately chose to put it through. Whereas motion capture, the pros of that are it's a very quick way of getting blocking into the game, or like a rough idea of what you'll eventually see. And then your job as an animator is then to whittle it down and amp it up and really truncate a lot of the frames out. So rather than a punch, if you saw a realistically timed punch in the game, it would feel so slow because you have to push a button and that punch has to happen, which is not something that happens in real life.
Wow, that's incredible. That's Kristen, that's something that you don't even think about when you're playing. I mean, that's insane, isn't it?
It is, and I love this idea of method animating because I know method acting very much. So could you expand a little further on method animating? I have to hear more about this. You put yourself in the space.
Method animating is definitely a joke. I joke about it a lot, where I ask the other animators, like, would you like me more or less if I method animated every character? And they say, less, absolutely less. We would not enjoy it if you were sauntering around like Stukov, being kind of brooding and nasty and stern for 6 weeks. Like, we would hate it if you did that. Like, okay, I guess I won't this time. But definitely when you get into the video capture, you kind of, it's funny because we don't really have a space to take reference of ourselves in a way that's like a safe, closed-off space. So it's usually one or more animators like hiding in a conference room, hoping nobody's booked a meeting. Like, I have this horrible reference of me where I'm like, okay, I'm going to have to be ETC. I'm animating a new Hearth for him, and he is rocking out. And I don't have a guitar. I have a foam sword that I'm holding like a guitar, and like headbanging in a conference room, and then the second somebody walks by, you see me like stop and try to like
fix the hair,
exactly,
reset the clothes.
I actually have some reference videos for you I could probably send along. If you want to splice those horrible videos. Junkrat's taunt, I couldn't get the timing right for it. And he does like arm flapping, like, are you a chicken kind of thing? And so I have all this really bad reference of me really sore after a leg day, like, in a conference room alone. You gotta be the character sometimes, and that's as far as it goes, really.
Absolutely. Daniel Day-Lewis would be proud of all of the method animating happening over at Blizzard.
Thank you so much. Yeah. We work hard.
Absolutely. This is great stuff. I mean, now we could spend the rest, as Kristen knows, we could spend the rest of this episode talking about how much I love Varian's combat animations. I mean, that was one of the first characters where I was always into the animation in the game, always really all about it. And then just the combat animations for basic attacks for Varian are so fluid. They feel like Varian. I mean, it was happening just as Legion was at its release time, and you're watching all these cinematics with Varian doing all of these really awesome things, not to mention his kit with the parry and all that was just incredible. But the animations really got to me. And then when you select level 10, if you select Twin Blades, he pulls Charlemagne apart. And I died. I thought that was the coolest thing, that little nugget was added in there when you selected a specific talent. And then, of course, the shield, so on and so forth. So my question here, when I'm finally getting to about Varian, is that, I mean, where does that choice come from to add a specific animation for when you select a heroic? Is it something that comes from the gameplay developers, or is it something usually that the animation team says, wait a minute, you want to do 3 different heroics? Well, what if we did a different animation for each one? Can you talk on that a little bit? I'm sure it's a little bit of both.
Absolutely. And I love this question. Varian's auto attack animations, for me, are like the gold standard. They were done by Michael Cuevas, who's sort of like the combat god on the team. He's absolutely fantastic. That fluidity is something I've strived for, and I think every character since, and I've never gotten so preach on that. It's so good. When it comes to the level 10 animation choice, I think there might only be 2 heroes that utilize that hook in the game. And you're right in that it's definitely a bit of both, and it's very situational. So I think the first person who had the level 10 hook in the game was Dahaka, who I animated, and that came from the art director, where he really wanted you to pick that level 10 and have his extra arms grow back. So it shows that he's collected this essence and he's evolving, and that was a purely character hit. That was purely on the side of the fantasy and lore of that hero, and that had no gameplay implications. I think it's the lowest priority animation, because if you're doing anything else, it's not going to play. But if you happen to select your heroic and you're walking through mid lane, he's going to, hulk out, and those arms are going to grow back. Varian is definitely an incredible fantasy hit, and definitely an amazing artistic hit that we were allowed to reach. However, due to the nature of the hero and having the 3 heroics and how different the hero is going to play in each heroic, it was distinctly a gameplay requirement that we make it very obvious which one you've selected when the time comes. So making sure that he picks taunt, boom, that shield's coming up, and you can see that moment happen. He picks Twin Blades, boom, Charlemagne, 2 pieces now, amazing. And then finally, Colossus Smash, he just raises that sword up, so he's keeping it real.
Yeah, and
definitely gameplay there.
Oh, sorry about that.
No,
and going off of that, do you ever know that a hero has to have a specific animation, and then you have to build off of that single thing that has to happen?
You mean by way of the entire kit?
Yeah, so say, for instance, the Stitches hook, right? Stitches has to hook people. That's his character. So there needs to be a hook, and then it kind of flowers outward. Or do you find yourself more that there are 3 to 4 beats, let's say, that have to be hit, and that allows for a bit more freedom of building?
So I think with a character like Stitches, knowing he has to have a hook, that is absolutely something that would be considered, but it wouldn't necessarily be considered from the animation side. Animation definitely plays a role of, and many of the departments play a role of service to the design. In a fast-paced esport like Heroes of the Storm, the most important thing is that the player playing knows exactly what the abilities they are doing, and when they're hitting, and making sure that they have the right trajectories and understand the space that they have to work with. However, when the team is working, we do work quite closely together from early in the process. It will definitely be the designer's job to say, okay, I'm doing stitches. Number one for me, he's got to have a hook. But where does that fall? And then when they're starting to create the kit, they create the paper design, they sort of pitch it to this team that's of artists and engineers and technical designers and technical artists and the whole shebang. They pitch the kit, and people can say, I have a concern there, or this is how we can make that even cooler. So that's sort of the role of animation, is in this support role for design, rather than saying, he's got to move this way or I'm out.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And going off of that a little bit, how awesome are the moments when you're in this room and somebody says, wait a minute, I can make that even cooler. And they say, Varian's going to take Charlemagne, split the sword in half, and then scream, and it's going to be so awesome. Does everybody just go crazy like, that's what we need, that's what we need, let's make it happen?
I would say they're definitely very, very hype moments, but they almost happen after the meeting, in my experience, where during the meeting, it's very clinical. Or like, you know what would really be really cool is if we did this, and somebody's like, yes, that is cool. And we sort of have these moments of that, yeah, what makes that more badass, what makes that more badass, and it's like a almost analytical on the cool scale process. And then as soon as we're like, great, we got it, and then we're like, this is gonna be amazing. And then that's where it happens, is after everybody goes, break.
That's great. So everybody is in that room together. And so our next question here is talking a little bit about how the animation team might work with the sound team, because I would assume that those two teams would need to be constantly communicating with each other. I mean, you're doing all of this stuff and sound might not be able to create what you're animating. Or can you talk a little bit on that and how that process works?
The sound team is such an incredible team of superstars. Like, the times I've animated something and I'm like, it's not feeling right. It is not feeling great. I don't know what's up, but it's just, Sukov's auto attack, actually, I don't know how many times I animated it. I hated every iteration of it. Even the one in game, I was like, this is not good. And then the sound got in and I was like, oh my God, I really hit that guy. I hit him hard. And we don't necessarily work closely with the team. There's not a lot of back and forth there. Oh. Every once in a while, they will come to us and say, is there a way that you can move this 2 frames earlier? Or if you give us this much more time on that thing, we'll be able to do this cooler sound that will feel like this. But they are because they come so far at the end of the process, after all the animation has happened, all the effects have happened, the kit's locked in, like everything's done, and they kind of just go in like a crazy strike team and just knock it out of the park every time. There are occasionally times where I've gone down there and said something like, is there any way that we could do this? And they've never not been able to make my dreams come true.
Huh. That's fascinating. And it makes a lot of sense too that sound would be toward the end, right? Because you don't want to have too much, is this animation even going to make it into the final kit? So that's really neat. And so working with sound, now Overwatch. I since there's a lot of this crossover, what is it like with the research with Overwatch? Do you get a lot of assets from that team? Is it easier to animate an Overwatch hero?
We definitely don't get, we get assets we definitely get assets as far as reference material goes, but we never port an asset directly in from any other game and just say, whoa, imported, now it's in our game. Due to the unique camera angle of Heroes of the Storm, the just sort of top-down isometric view, you would be surprised how the proportions just don't suit our needs. You lose a lot of the silhouette of the character from the top-down angle. And so somebody like Tracer, who's just so teeny and skinny, she just disappeared in our game. There was actually a really fantastic talk at BlizzCon this year. If you've got the virtual ticket, it was the Hero Deep Dive panel, and Andrew Kinnebrew talks a bit about what that meant for Hanzo. So that was really cool if you want to see more in depth in that. But usually we'll bring their characters over, and it's cool because we could talk to the team directly. So when it comes to the character modeling side, they'll show us their model, and we say, oh, we know how we need to sort of push this, usually like broadening the shoulders, making people a little bit more visible from the top, making everybody a little bulkier, helps with the visibility in our game. But with the animation, it's fantastic because you can say, what did you decide motivated this character? And they've sent us some of their original reference material. I got some fantastic reference material when I did Junkrat about how his face looked and the kind of internal struggles he was going through, and things absolutely don't do because he would never do that. And so definitely lots of insight on that character or on any of the characters from that team.
That's great. I mean, so you've spoken a lot about working on specific heroes and working on even specific animations for specific heroes, like you were talking about Malfurion's victory animation. Is the development of the animation for the characters in the game split into their different types of animation mostly for the animators to work on, or is it split into, Lana, you're going to be the animator for Dahaka and we want you to animate everything? I mean, can you talk a little bit about how that process is kind of divvied up?
I can. Back in the old days when I first started and there were just 3 of us, we definitely... it was, here's your hero, go do it. That is what you got. And we had very limited amount of time. There was, I think, Karina animated Murky in 2 weeks or something like that. Like, it was insane the way, like, we just had to get heroes going. We had to make sure they were being tested in the design, and we need to make sure they played well together, and we had to just get them out there because you don't know how they work unless you can play them. And then now that we've expanded the animation team a little bit, we definitely have more heroes where there are 2, maybe even 3 animators on a hero than we have 1 animator on a hero, although it still happens. Like, just due to the nature of the way the scheduling happened to work out, I did Junkrat, and I was the only person who worked on Junkrat, which is kind of a very selfish luxury because I could be like, yeah, I did that.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's great. And it's fantastic both because we have so many, we don't have so many, but we have different personality flavors on the team, and everybody brings something new to the table. So when you get these people working together, like if you have like Quavis, Combat God, working with Mike Higgins, who's so good at like character flavor and like really broad, beautiful, fluid, cartoonier motions, you get something so unique that you would never get with just one of those animators alone.
Oh, great. So with these animators, how does everything change in the process? Is it very much things look entirely different when it starts out and versus when it launches? Or do these animations kind of keep that same look? It's just minor tweaks here and there. Every animator sort of has a different way of working. Karina has sort of adopted this way where she will go through the whole kit and just put in like a pose, like one pose for every ability. And so when you're playing the character, it feels like staccato movements where it's like, I'm doing this, and I'm doing this, and I'm walking, and I'm doing this. And there's just a pose, so you can sort of get like a very almost stop motion kind of feel to how the character will eventually look. There's definitely a back and forth. Occasionally we'll create an animation and maybe the ability changes, or maybe we realize it's just not working the way we wanted it to, and we'll cut it and do something more subtle or more broad depending on what we need. And even more rarely we'll create an entire animation and it goes in the game, and then somebody's like, you know what? We can't do that. And then it goes away.
Yeah. And so how much time do you usually have when you're working on a new hero? I mean, I know in the Resurrecting Kel'Thuzad documentary, which was incredible. They talked a little bit about the amount of time it takes to develop a hero. And so let's say you're working on a specific animation for Kel'Thuzad and it's just not working. How much time do you have to nail it down before it's dropped and another avenue is pursued? Or even, are people working on different Kel'Thuzad's chains? Are you working on one version of it? If it's really tough, you maybe get somebody else in to help you. How does that all work?
We typically, because most of us have been doing this for a while, I would say there's rarely a time where somebody's working on something and they throw their hands up and they say, I can't do this. We have typically to animate a character in full, we have 6 weeks. And sometimes there's more than one animator working on it. So that time is technically closer to 8 weeks if you have more people working on it. The man hours stretch to 8 or even 12 weeks sometimes. But if somebody's working on something that's really challenging, we do have weekly animation reviews where we all get up and we go to each person's desk and we say, what are you working on? And sometimes they're like, I'm working on this. And everybody goes, that looks awesome. And we walk away. And sometimes somebody goes, I'm working on this and I really, I'm having a rough time of it. And then you have the minds of 7 people there saying, well, I think if this is what your intent with the ability is, you could go this direction. You could speed this up, take frames out here, punch it up, make that pose broader, et cetera, et cetera. So you definitely have the collective people. So when you're working on an animation, it's pretty rare that you hit that deadline and you're like, that's it, man, somebody else got to do it. Usually, even if you hit the deadline, you're like, I need more time. And production finds a way.
That's really nice. I love this community. It sounds like you guys have where it's very supportive and everyone, of course, is in it to make it the best it can possibly be. All right. So last kind of professional question before we move into some fun ones.
Cool.
Do you guys also work on the map animations?
In certain maps and certain little pieces, yes. We do have the most incredible environment, our team. Holy moly. They are so talented. They do the modeling and the texturing and the effects. Wow, they are an animation for, like, we don't do any of the building animation. All the structure sports keeps, that's all them. They're a dream team. They're the best. We have had the ability to animate some of the cores, which are really cool. That's a very luxurious animation because you get like 5 or 6 seconds to just do something badass. It's like, what is it going to be? It's a demon crawling out of the fires of hell and then appearing and solidifying into the core. Yeah, very cool. But the thing we get to do most often is like the little civilians, the little people that are all over the map. That's us usually. I was one of the things I did when I first got hired, where they're sort of like ramping me in, was I animated a lot of the people. And at that point in time, we tried to do a thing where if heroes casted spells near enough to them, the civilians would play a specific animation as a reaction to that. I don't know if it actually works. I haven't actually tested it very much. But you would go, and if they were near you and your team was in the lead and something happened, they would all start clapping.
Oh.
On King's Crest, they're all like these maidens and princesses, and there's a king who's like got a goblet and he's like looking for more wine, and some women whisper to each other and some of them laugh and some of them are like, darn, my team's losing, and they do all these different little things. There's a guy on, I think he's on Warhead Junction, who he'll sit there and he'll look around and then he'll turn around and he'll do some spray painting quickly and then he'll go back to looking cool. And then the Harrison Jones sequences. I got to animate the Tomb of the Spider Queen one, and that was like, they gave me so much time. There was a lot of time. I was like, I'm going to have them run off a thing and then jump on a rope and like do whatever. And I was like, sweet. And so I got to animate this big sequence of Harrison Jones. That was just a silly animation I did, and that was cool.
That's got to be the best feeling for an artist like yourself, to be able to just have a blank slate like that, for them to just be like, you know what, Harrison Jones, go.
Absolutely. Oh my goodness. And even with some of the more established heroes, the Overwatch heroes can be difficult because their franchise is so new. Not difficult. You don't want to change it very much. You're trying to give people the most authentic version so that when they're playing that hero in Heroes, they think, yes, you know, this is the Lucio I remember. This is the Junkrat I remember. It feels the same. It's just different, in a different space. And so trying to find those places where I'm like, and that's my contribution to this character, like on the concussion mine. There's no need. Originally, if anybody got hit by the concussion mine, they kind of did this in the air and they fell down, like the generic flailing animation we have for anybody who gets sort of dazed. And I was like, but what if, because Junkrat doesn't get hurt by it, what if he did fun things? And so I got to go through and I made 7 or something different variants of him getting hit by the mine and like whatever he's doing in the air. And that's just finding space for a blank piece of that slate is another fun. It's a fun challenge that we face.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, let's get into some fun questions here. So we're talking about Heroes. I mean, you clearly do you play the game in your free time?
Oh yes, it's when we're in the office. It's actually very funny. So people will be like, "Oh, this long morning working. I can't wait to clock out so I can play the game I've been making." And then clock back in like, oh, work. Very funny attitude.
Who is your favorite hero? Who's your highest level? Who is your go-to auto lock?
I just hit level 71 on Kerrigan last night.
Whoa.
Played maybe too much Kerrigan.
Not enough.
It's
never enough.
Yeah.
Okay, so you have to pick one animation in the game that's your absolute favorite. What is it?
Oh, man. That's a good question. I think my go-to answer for that, because it happened when I was so new, is Johanna has like one auto attack. I'm pretty sure when she crits. This is such a dweeby animation. Like, this is my favorite animation.
We love it. We love it.
Yeah, this is Heroes of the Storm. This is a show about Heroes of the Storm.
So she has, I'm pretty sure it's when I don't actually play Johanna, so I don't know. I'm pretty sure it's when she crits. The mace, or the Morning Star, she swings it around and then goes, toosh. And that animation is magic. Again, Michael Cuevas, Combat God. It happens, like if you have it in the file, it happens in like 6 frames or something like that. It's 3 game loops if people care about that. Like it happens in no time. A second is 30 frames. And so it happens in 6 frames, and somehow he visually makes it very obvious that she's reeling back, spinning around the Morning Star, and then hitting upwards in a way that was so brilliant. I'd never seen animation used that way before, and it like blew my mind out of the water. And then more recently, I think it was Mike Higgins' Zul'jin's riding animations. You feel like he's got that big mohawk and it's like all overlapping in his shoulders and the muscles. And when you got Zul'jin on a war bear, it's poetry in motion. Beautiful.
It is. And just as you're talking about this, I mean, Kristen and we constantly talk about animations on the show. You know, we'll come up with an idea and like, what would this look like if you were to do it? Oh, well, it'd be so great. This would happen, that would happen. And, you know, just talking to you over the last hour, we've opened even my eyes to, I gotta watch this stuff way more close. I already had a huge appreciation for it, but every time I see that Johanna movement now, I'm gonna be like, that's really cool. So what was your favorite animation to work on specifically?
That is a great question as well. Sometimes I'll work on an animation and I love it because it felt so, like it came so naturally, it felt so easy. But I think one of my favorite animations to work on, I actually felt like I was just in hell while I was working on it, was actually Lucio's Hero Select Ready Up animation. So if you're in Quick Match and you press Ready Up, he goes, oh, this is my jam! And he does, like, he reels back with his head and he drops his arms and he spins around, jumps up, and then lands in his little ready dance thing that he does. That was another one of those moments where it's like, okay, I want to do something that doesn't exist in Overwatch, but feels like this character. And I was sort of sitting at my computer, and I was listening to the line, and I want it to be like nuanced in a particular way. And at the time, I was going through, I have like this chart that I draw about, you know, perception of skill, and and your actual skill level. And I was on one of the downswings. So I was actually feeling like I wasn't a great animator. I was having like crazy imposter syndrome. Like, I can't do this. I don't know how I'm ever going to finish this animation to make it feel great. And then I was like working and I changed one key and I played it. And I went, and I came on the upswing and I went, it's perfect. It was the first time I looked at an animation that I'd done and went, I like that. And I still like it. I love it. So that's my favorite one that I worked on.
Oh, geez, what a relief too for that feeling to kick in when you know it's not fake. You've been working probably over a decade on this skill. It's not a joke. This is real. Okay, so you are tasked with choosing any hero, not in the Nexus, any Blizzard IP character that you could possibly animate. Who would you want to animate, be in charge of? Who would you fight your team to animate?
Oh, man. That is a really, really great question. I have like a very particular answer for that because I do believe that it's true. I feel it. And that is, I love working on characters who I don't know almost anything about. Like my Blizzard love, I was rooted largely in StarCraft when I was growing up. Oh my God, I played the crap out of StarCraft. And so coming here, I played Warcraft, but I didn't play a ton of World of Warcraft. So anytime I get to work on a World of Warcraft character, I get to sit there and I get to go through the lore and I get to figure out, like, doing all the research for it and figuring out, you know, who they are and what their story is. It's like I get to spend some time like just reading stories and watching movies and doing this research, and I love that. And so for me personally, I really want to see a Draenei enter the Nexus. I actually don't even know any of their names, but I think there's like so much art of them on the walls. They are beautiful characters. They got those crazy goat legs, and they're just cool. And that is what I would like to see come into the Nexus. Personally.
Yes, I think you are not alone. I am sure there are some people that agree with you. Two of them being on this show specifically. So when you are when you're at that moment, you're at that pinnacle. Let's say they say, Lana, you're going to be animating Dahaka. What is the first thing that your mind goes to when you start thinking about this character? What is the one thing you're looking forward to the most? Is it, just generically, do you think, okay, I'm really looking forward to do the hero select for the quick match because that's my favorite thing to animate? Or am I thinking, oh, the combat animations, those are going to be legit? What's the first thing you think of usually?
Dahaka is a great example because I actually did fight people so I could animate him. I love him so much. I went to school so that I could animate monsters. And he was, in my opinion, like the first monster in the game. And so I was really excited about that. And I always get excited to do anything where I can find character moments in it. Dahaka, I feel like I found it everywhere. I wanted him, because when I was an intern, I was working on Heart of the Swarm when we met Dahaka, and hearing him talk and sort of getting a vibe of what his personality was and the weird personality I'd apparently given him in my own brain because I play tested Heart of the Swarm so much. I was like, he's a sneaky buddy and he's gonna be so sneaky, and I just wanted him to feel like this sneaky guy. And so the hero select I always look forward to. That's my favorite. We get control of the face bones, which we don't get usually when in the typical gameplay, because you're not spending a lot of time looking at their visage when you're team fighting. So the hero select animations are great. Having him do this little jump and shuddering roar was fun. I love doing the dances, the hearth, anything that has more time, and it's almost explicitly for animation to be well, let me show you what I got.
Yeah.
And so that, but for him, the walk, he's missing that arm, and so every once in a while he is a rarity where he'll limp on the one arm, and just getting to do those fun, really pulling that character out as much as I can in every little moment.
And props for the little scratch he does. I love when he brings his little leg up to scratch.
Thank you so much. That was one of the most difficult animations I've ever done.
Really?
Making sure that tail followed that figure eight was crazy town, but Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Okay. And so last question. And okay, so recently I know in the Nexus with Alex Strauss, especially the tail and the head following the direction of the mouse cursor. That's kind of a capability we're just now seeing.
The turning tech.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. So not what's the next animation capability you want to see? Or if there's one out there currently that they don't have in the Nexus, what would you bring in if you could?
Oh man, that's a good question, and I want to make sure that I can answer it the way that I want to answer it.
Fair enough.
I forget. I keep referencing my notes because I think that's good. Okay. Yeah, I don't know if I can talk about explicit tech that I want. There is explicit tech that I want, but I don't know if it's not gonna. It'll sound probably like a bunch of garbage coming out of my face. The turning tech is awesome, and so I don't really know if I can answer that question.
No, that's totally fine.
Fair enough.
Okay,
fair enough.
Yeah, because the turning tech, I mean, it's the tech that's in the game that makes it, IP for Blizzard, and what makes it what us play every single day. We want to play this game because it looks so good. It looks, in my opinion, I mean, maybe it's because I do a podcast about this game and I love it so much, but it looks better than any MOBA. It looks so good. It's clean. It's fresh. And, it's stuff like that, technology that you guys are using that just makes it feel so good. So, yeah, keep it. Keep all the info. Just keep the cool stuff coming.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And thank you for playing. Oh my gosh, that's the best. That is just the best.
Well, yeah, we play just a little bit, right, Kristen?
Just a little.
We do. We got our team leagues on Saturdays and all that good stuff.
So when do I get to ask you questions yet?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah.
So what are your favorite heroes to play?
Kristen, take it away.
Murky. Murky's
Beauty.
my main.
Yeah, and I got my Leoric. I am all over Leoric with the huge, I mean, talk about animation. Skeletal swing, like these giant hulking bones. God, it feels good.
Yeah, great heroes. I love both of them, and I always hate it when they're on the other team because I know that they're going to be great.
Thank you. I feel that way about Lucio. Never mind him when he's on my team, but when he's on the enemy team, the worst feeling in the world is to lose to a Lucio.
So my next question is, who is your favorite hero that you guys have made on the show?
Oh, that's a really, really good question. Kristen, you got like 98 heroes to choose from. Who do you pick is your ultimate baddie that you want in the Nexus?
Okay, so if we're going with want in the Nexus, Dark Wanderer.
Okay. That was our first episode together.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I was about to
He's
say, do you know what
such
the
a
episode
special
number
place.
Okay.
Yes, episode number 2. It was me and Kristen, our first episode together. Taking it back, little tear, big tear. I'm so happy we got this far. My answer to that would be the Innkeeper. And if Lana wasn't on the show, I would say, come on, Blizzard, let's do it. Let's get the Innkeeper in here.
You know what? That's totally acceptable. Very, very acceptable. I myself say, come on, Blizzard. Lots and lots.
That is so cool. Okay, Lana, we want to make sure that we're respectful of your time. Thank you so much for coming on the show and celebrating our 100th episode with us. I mean, it has been eye-opening to everything that you guys do. If you already out there haven't seen the Resurrecting Kel'Thuzad YouTube documentary, check it out. Seriously, it's so cool to see how all of these puzzle pieces come together, and it even shows that there are more puzzle pieces than we can even imagine as players of this game as we have this interview with you, Lana, on the show. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. Seriously, the best. And congratulations again. 100 episodes is amazing. Keep them coming.
Thank you. And also I want to thank you because the rest of my games are ruined because I'm just going to be spending all of my time looking at all the dope animations out there and missing all of the team fights. But maybe it won't matter because all of my teammates will miss the team fights anyway.
Perfect. Sounds classic.
Hashtag Silver League.
Hashtag Bronze League problems. Thank you again so much for joining us. Thank you to the Blizzard community team for making this happen again. A big shout out to Bethany for making this happen. We couldn't do it without you. We also want to thank again our iTunes reviewers and also all of the patrons that help support the show and keep it going week after week. You guys are rock stars, as you know, as always. And we're going to keep this show going out there. So if you're still tuned in, hang tight. Lots more episode 100 stuff is coming right after this.